All right, third and last place that we can create interference is with ourselves. And I was in another Super Rugby coaches workshop, and very lucky, just again sitting in the back of the room doing teas and coffees, and this guy from the Arbinger Institute started talking about this self-deception concept. And I was really intrigued, and the other super coaches that were there started asking questions and saying, so how does this actually work? Self-deception. And the best way I can explain it is talk you through a scenario. So the way I saw my life at that time when I came across this concept, I was at a regional job which required a lot of travel around the lower North Island. My darling was able to be at home if she wanted to, and we wanted that to look after the kids. So I travelled a lot, but I was also able to work from home when I could. And then kids came along, and the old waking in the night disruptions, etc. And so early on in my head, when the baby cried, and initially, one instance I remember, but it was also a couple of times this happened, is I wanted to get up and help. That was my first reaction. But then as quick as that, the next thought was, hang on, hold on. I'm working busy days here. I just got back late last night. I've got a full day today. No, she can do it. It's her job. And so I lay in bed and the baby kept crying. She didn't move. And I thought, man, come on. You know I just got in late. You know I've got a busy day tomorrow. I earn for this family. You need to get up. And so she got up and attended to the baby. And so this is what happens in this process. When I had that first thought, I could get up and honor it. Honor that thought, get up, dress the baby. Or I can dishonor it, which I did, and I stayed in bed. And the intriguing thing is, once you dishonor it, our brain starts to justify our decision. So it says, I'm a hardworking husband. This is not fair. You know, she can be at home so she can get up. I'm the victim because I've got this busy day ahead tomorrow. And I've been busy. And I've been working heaps and heaps of hours, travel. So my brain, our brain start to justify that decision of dishonoring it. And it blows these decisions up massively. Why? Because its function is to protect us. I've made a decision. I'm going to protect that decision and myself and my decision by blowing up my justifications. Then what it starts to do, this is the freaky part, is we start to collect evidence against the other person. And I start to see her as a lazy wife, selfish because she didn't get up and she knows that I've got a busy day. And I know you females out there are starting to cringe as I go through this process, but I have changed my behavior. But at the time, this is what I was thinking. I was thinking she's unappreciative of me. You know, she knows I'm out on the road working hard. Those are the thoughts I start to see of her, and then I collect massive evidence to support that story. And when I get up out of bed in the morning, they're still asleep, obviously, and I go into the shower. And all I see is these clothes of hers and babies on the floor. And I think, oh, gosh, see, look, she's left that for me to pick up and put in the laundry. Collecting evidence. Then I go into the kitchen to do my breakfast and I see the dishes are all still not done from yesterday. Oh, look, see, she's lazy. She's leaving them for me to do. And I collect this massive evidence against the other person. And then at the same time, I keep blowing up my justifications. This view of the situation is not accurate at all. My darling could not be the most hardworking wife and mum out there. She, in our first child, she went and studied full time, and one of her exams she had to sit through because she had morning sickness. She's done 3 degrees. She's moved a relocatable house. She's the most determined, committed human being that I know. So these thoughts and evidence couldn't be further from the truth. And it happened again with an old boss. You know, he had communication, organization, planning, and meetings. They were quite poor. And my first thought was I should help him. But I just started in a role and I was like, nah, he's the boss. He gets paid for this. He's been around longer. He should be able to do this job. Not my job. And I started collecting more and more evidence around how hopeless he was, around how inefficient he was, started to justify, no, I'm just new. No, not my problem. And so I didn't have clarity of thought. I wasn't operating in the F1 driver's brain, that's for sure. I was going round and round in the emotional brain, and it affected my performance, and it affects your performance. So the reality you think is reality is a question mark. What I found is I was looking at, I was like I had these, these flash new goggles on, and I was in my own story, walking through life with my goggles on. Meanwhile, reality was happening outside it. My wife wasn't lazy. She wasn't inconsiderate. And we gather this proof to support our story. And we create this story, which is then a belief about that person. And that's the dangerous part. Now, self-betrayal causes this massive interference right in front of our eyes. And if we, over time, we rerun that story, that story of me in bed not getting up and her being inconsiderate, we rerun that over 25 years. Imagine the story and the belief that couples build up about each other, or the stories that you have about other people. And so those stories become your beliefs. What brain are we operating in then? Are we actually thinking rationally at all? And in my instance, I don't have time to go into now, but my 14 years relationship with my darling was the story I had in my head of Rambo coming to save her, and that she needed to listen to me and we would do whatever I would say, was complete and utter just rubbish. Anyway, so you're going to identify people you've self-betrayed against. So who have you had a thought to help, or, this initial first thought, but then you went against it? And you can obviously start with your partners first. That's usually the easiest. Then you can move to your work colleagues or athletes, etc. Then, what was the event? Were you lying in bed and the baby cried? What was your thought? What was your emotion? What was your response? And now what's the story that you've started to build around that person and you and their relationship? What justifications are you saying? Yeah, I'm busy, I'm hardworking. And then what evidence are you collecting around that person? Now, I know what some of you are saying is, hey, what if I don't have this thought or feeling to start with? Like, I look at that new work colleague and I don't have a feeling. I just know that he's a dick. Well, this concept is what Arbinger Institute call of being in the box. And what has then happened once we're in the box is our beliefs are now leading our response. Okay. So based on the stories that run through your head, they are now so strong that they don't cause you to have any thoughts or feelings. You just know that that's the response. There's that belief. This is the response I need to have. And so when we see this pile of sugar, as kids, remember, we used to think, yum. There's the event. Mum's putting the sugar on the table, or this white stuff at this point. Thoughts are, when we're young, I'm going to give that maybe go and try that out. My emotion, I'm curious. The response is I grab it and eat it. The belief or story in my head is like, oh, that tastes nice. Yeah. That's beautiful. And so repeat develops the story, and it becomes so strong that your stories then drive your thoughts and emotions automatically. It's really quick, and you go straight to the response. There's the white stuff. It's sugar. I'm going to grab it. That's my response. Oh, shit, it's bloody salt. It's not what you expected. And so this is the operating system, or sorry, this is the way of being we now become as adults. We don't experiment, or we struggle to experiment things anymore. There's an event. Should we go and see what that's like? I'm curious. Oh, actually, there's my response. No, we're not going to do that. Whereas now, because we're adults, we've got these beliefs. Don't go swimming in that ocean because there's sharks. Instead of there's an event, let's go and test it out and then find out beliefs. Not saying you should swim with sharks, but your beliefs are driving how you be. And those beliefs are based on old stories that may not be true, is the point we're trying to make, in particular around people. Okay, and the story I need to end with on this that really hit home for me was we look at people, and based on the stories in our head, which are created from events in our past, we can make quick judgments. We can be judgmental. And the photo there on the bottom right of Lunni, who was a development officer in the Lower North Island that we used to work with, he was a twin. And he was a good rugby player, but then as he got older and started to do his work in the development officer space, started to get a big puku. And we did this trek up a hill, go hunting one time, and it was puku, it was so big, and he said, I'm going to do it, and he walked up, and my first response, seeing him, or my first thought, I was in the box. I saw him, saw his figure, I thought, oh, lazy. You know, finished his rugby career and now doesn't commit to any training. He then used to fall asleep in our workshops, lazy, started collecting evidence. And long story short, I had this picture of Lunni that he was a lazy, wasn't committed to his health, and wouldn't do the extra yards. That was the evidence I had built up. Couldn't be further from the truth. Those people that know him, the most caring person out there. And his puku, which started to get really big, ended up being a cancerous ulcer, and he died from that ulcer, and which was massive in his stomach. And it just hit me that how you know, being in the box causes us to be so judgmental. We go straight to our beliefs, which is fueled by our own experience, but also media. Someone in that shape, big puku, must be lazy, uncommitted. And so being in the box towards others is what we want you to have a look at and investigate. So what's the event? What was your thoughts, feelings? What was your response towards them? Then what was your belief about that and about them? Right, so I think that's it with self-betrayal. Yeah, very powerful. Okay, so wrapping up. F1 driver's brain is where we can perform under intense pressure. We can perform to our potential. All right, but being in that brain is hindered by mental interference. Mental interference causes us to go into stress response quicker and easier. So whether it's in different parts of our life, if we're always going into stress response, we are building this map in our brains. The stress response map is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And it's like the repetition of any skill. You repeat it enough times, it becomes habit. And so what I'm trying to get across to you is that you might have a stress response over here in your personal life, over here in your work life, but not in your rugby coaching life. And you think you might have that mastered. But in fact, stress response in any part of your life drains your whole potential, prevents you from reaching or performing to your real potential. And it's like having the iPhone for the first time, and I wondered why my battery didn't last that long. And it wasn't until someone told me, JT, let me look at this. And he, flipped it up and he showed me all the apps and windows that I had open for the last 2-3 weeks were still open. And that was draining my battery life. And so that's the same with mental interference. Whether you've got it in one part of your life, some parts of your life, if you think that that doesn't affect where you're going in your coaching life, then I'm here to say I'm sorry. That's going to really affect how you stay in your driver's brain, because it's the same skill, whether you're at home, at work, or at play. All right, so hopefully that gives you a bit more awareness on where interference can be created. Get the template down and analyze your areas of life, your relationships, environment, and self. Jot that down, positive and negative ones, and have a look at where and how you respond to certain situations. And the next one's going to be about, now, how do we then remove that interference? Because identifying it's step 1, removing it's step 2. Alrighty, thanks heaps, JT out.